Yeah, but it also, like, it sucks that the skill expression of Dead by Daylight is and has always been breaking the game. I will never not like that. That became no. I agree. I think like stuff like that should become base kit in some way or shape or form. Billy had this too. Curves became base kit. That wasn't intentional. Curves were not intentional on Billy. Here's the problem though with making it base kit. Here's the problem with making text base kit, and I'll tell you the number one example, and people are going to get mad at me when I mention it because it's not the same, even though it is. Oni. That's the risk you run when you make something like that base kit. That is the risk you run when you make a tech like that base kit. But that's my point. But that's my point, though, is that that's the risk you run. They made it base kit. It's intentional now. So what do we do? It's miserable now. So I don't know. Like I understand that perspective of playing him as learning how to flick. I liked Oni because I thought the idea of being an M1 killer until you get to M2 and get like this power stance, that was the appeal to me for Oni. Not the flicks. But I'm also different because I don't really God, he's so angry. I'm also weird because I don't really like that kind of skill expression personally. No, but Lynx, that's the thing. DBD is a very knowledge-checky game. And honestly, I'm going to say this, and I think some people might get mad at me saying it, I think it should stay that way. I don't think Dead by Daylight should become a mechanically intensive game. And the thing is, and like I mentioned with Wesker a little bit, almost all of the mechanically intensive things about Dead by Daylight are not intentional. Yeah, it is cranking up your DPI extremely high, really skill expression. The argument was that you still had to know when to do it and how much to flick and all of that stuff. But much like, and this is weird because like, when I was growing up, and I'm about to show my age here, when I was growing up, the skill expressive thing was aim, right? That was the thing. And some people are going to correct me on this, but yeah, it was aiming, right? That was the skill expression in most shooters, right? It was aim. If you're a god tier aimer, you're good at the video game. That's how it worked. But if you ask any pro nowadays on most shooter games, it's not aim that matters. They will tell you that. Aiming is like the least important thing in most of those games now. It's positioning, map knowledge, game sense, utility use. Like, it's not aim. Even then, I would say most killers you can learn in like 3 days, if you're dedicated enough. I haven't been doing too great with Pyramid Head tonight, but that's mostly because I've been gone for like 2 weeks. But, like, I mean, we saw the fucking progression. I was getting better with him for a little bit there. It only took like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, the skill expression in Dead by Daylight is the macro play. But the problem with the skill expression being macro play, I don't mind that. That's why I enjoy Dead by Daylight so much, because it's one of the few games where macro play is one of the main forms of skill expression. The problem with macro play being the main form of skill expression in a game, you can't clip it. That sounds stupid. It does. And it's vain, and it sucks, but it's true. You cannot clip macro play. For the most part. Sometimes you can. But even when you do, it does not look that impressive, because a lot of clips of macro play is explaining what you did. It's explaining why you did what you did and where you did it. With, like, Pyramid Head, again, like, most of the good Pyramid Head players, they can flick on Pyramid Head, right? They can do the M2s with their eyes closed. But being good at Pyramid Head, in my opinion, is knowing when to cage, knowing when to trail, knowing when to zone, knowing when to go for the M2. Like, those are the 4 pillars to me of Pyramid Head. Not necessarily landing the M2, but knowing when to go for it versus zoning. I would argue that some of the biggest creators in the stream did you mean scene? Don't have the G Fuel brain hug text and shit, but they have very good macro play and can explain it to the well, no, I agree with that. Otsarva is a very good example. Otsarva can explain like literally everything he's doing at all times and why he's doing it. I mean, I've shown it before. Chucky's a very good example, and when you're playing a 110 killer like Chucky, macro play is extremely important. All he has is chase. His chase is good, so you have to learn macro play or you're going to suffer on this killer. That is why I think it's so hard for some people to play this killer, especially now that Manual Scamper's gone. Because you can be the best at chase, but it doesn't matter if your macro play is ass. That's also why I think killers like Blight are so good. Their chase is good, and they don't need to... Not to say they don't need any, but their macro play is not nearly as important because their ability to get around the map circumvents their need for macro play. And unlike a killer like Sadako, who can teleport, so you would think, oh, her macro play is good too, Sadako has set teleport locations, so her macro play is knowing when and where to teleport. It's that's the thing. That's the secret sauce, in my opinion, that keeps Dead by Daylight where it is. Unknown's another good example. Unknown is mostly macro play. Not even just in its teleport, but even in its the UVX is also macro play. This one's gonna make some people mad, especially unknown players. Most of his skill shots are not micro play. They're not skill. That's knowledge. That's macro play. The skill is like the precision of landing it. The macro play, though, is knowing you can do it in the first place. It's like Orbitals on Huntress. Orbitals on Huntress, until that one trick was figured out, that's macro. That's not micro. That's not aim. That's knowing when and where to do it and how. And that's the thing with DBD, and you'll notice this, though. You mentioned it, Bailey, a little bit, is that DBD is definitely... I've noticed this a lot. Not always. There are definitely some younger creators in the scene. DBD has a much older audience than I think people give it credit for. For a multiplayer game, its audience is much older. And I think part of that is just because... It is just because of the fact that the game is not mechanically intensive. Most of it is knowing what to do in a loop, not necessarily being good at doing it. Hell, again, I'm fucking Chuck Spot McGee over here. I stand still in loops and get downs with it, you know? Like, that's not skillful, but it's macro knowledge and game sense. Well, yeah, that's why characters like Ghoul are so popular, is because the people... I'm gonna generalize younger people, I swear. I apologize, I have no hate to younger people. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I don't fucking care anymore. Anyways, that's why like killers like Ghoul and Blight are so popular. Because people who don't like the macro play and just want to chase play these killers. Because they can get away with not having the macro knowledge. Not fully, they still have to have some of it. And that's not me saying they're necessarily like super brain off easy. I know some people would argue that statement. But my point is, because they don't have to, they're much easier to pick up and play. No, I would agree. I would agree. And I think like Singularity, I think the Singularity's player base would probably skew a little older, honestly. Yeah, there you go. I'm not even gonna name it. I'm not even gonna say the name. Don't bring that curse to me. This is the internet. If you're an adult, you're on the older side. You're so true. So true. I'm not even in my mid-30s and I'm called old. I say that shit at work, and I work with like 50-year-olds, and they're like, you're not old. Like, I know. But people complained about the DBD board game being survivor-sided, when in reality those people were just really bad at macro play. Same applies to the video game. No, that's true. That's very true. Like, watch a Mr. Taterhead video going over how to play Survivor. Most of that shit is just knowledge checks. It's not even... You don't even have to... Okay, I need to choose my words wisely here. Not because they're wrong, but because it's going to sound wrong. On Survivor, most of it is not skill. Let me preface... Let me continue my statement before anyone takes that out of context. Most of Survivor is not skill in the sense of mechanical skill. It is skill in the sense of decision-making. Knowing when to loop, when to hold the check spot, where to do it, which loops you can do this on, when to run away from a loop, how many times should I loop this pallet, should I drop this pallet now? All of that is not... None of that is mechanical skill. It is all decision-making. Dropping a pallet isn't skillful. It never will be. I don't know why people act like there's some way to make that skillful. It's just not. But even then, even the game knowledge to chain loops, I wouldn't even consider that necessarily skillful. That's just knowledge. That's just knowing. But that said, Survivor is skillless. The thing is that, okay, let's take that Leon, right? That Leon on that Orman match, like on our second match, I think it was? That Leon, or no, it was a Dwight. It was a Dwight on that Orman match, right? Like, I was sitting there saying he was a very good survivor, but like he wasn't doing anything mechanically skillful. He was a very good survivor because his decision making was on point. Like Kasir just said, he knew how to chain loops, where to go, when to holds. He ran into me to vault a window to get life, to go to another loop that had a pallet up. Use that loop on that pallet to chain back to the window. That is nothing about what he did there is mechanically skillful. But that is macro knowledge and decision making to its highest extreme. And Windows removes it. I will agree with that. Windows does remove it. Yes. I will agree with that. And that's the problem Windows has, in my opinion. It's not that it's good. It's that it's too handholdy. It literally does the job for you. And that's not to say some killer perks don't do the same thing. I won't argue that point at all. I think Windows is just the most egregious one, though, on either side. Your defending survivors are going to pop thyself. Listen, I don't play Survivor much. I will prove this right now. I do not play Survivor much. I've made this clear because I don't play DBD much off stream for my own sanity's sake. And I don't play Survivor on stream because I don't know how to stream Survivor that well. I have 87 hours on Zarina in my entire time of playing this video game. That's just Zarina, to be fair. But I have like 100 hours grand total on Survivor. So like, I don't play both sides. I will never claim I play both sides, right? Yeah, I have 120 hours on Survivor. I have 740 on Killer. That's not a very good split. I should play Survivor more. I really should. I'm trying to get better about it. But my point is, even with me not playing Survivor, I still try to understand where they're coming from and how the role works. It's just... That's why I try not to fall into the camp of us versus them. I try my hardest not to do it. It's literally impossible to not do it. You're gonna say something that falls into one or the other. But it's just like... Oh, whoops. It's just like, it's such a hard thing. And this is even, again, I'm going to bring him up again because Mr. Taterhead made a great video on it, right? Mr. Taterhead, I forgot how long he played with it, but he did like no perks on Survivor for the longest time. For I think like 4 years or some shit like that. And he had like a really good escape rate. It was like 75%, which is really good. And someone asked him, why doesn't he do it on Killer? And he made the point that because Survivor doesn't need perks. And that, I think, also is part of the issue. Again, most of Survivor is just, it's decision-making. You can argue the same on Killer, but the decision-making on Killer is a time crunch. On Survivor, it's not nearly as much of a time crunch. When you're doing decision-making on Survivor, you're doing it in the moment. During that chase, or maybe right before the chase, right? That's your decision-making on Survivor. That may be like, I need to stop this 3-gen, so I'll do the one in the middle, blah, blah, blah. When you're doing the decision-making on Killer, though, the macro play is, where are all 4 survivors right now? Which gens are being done? How far is this gen? Where do I hook this person? Can I risk doing this loop? Do I break this pallet? Do I use my power here? Do I zone? Can I keep chasing this person? Do I drop the chase? Do I go back to the hook to secure a second stage? Or do I keep chasing this person to get it down? That one's on death hook. That one's down on death hook. Which one do I go for? It's early in the match. There's 3 gens up. That gen is at 90% though, so there might as well be 2 gens up. That's the difference. Everything I just said is the difference. And that's part of why Killer is so stressful for a lot of people. Because there's no way to turn your brain off to a lot of that stuff. I will concede as an aura enjoyer, it can be very similar on Killer with with aura. The difference, and I think for most of the aura perks in this game in that sense, is that most of the aura reading in this game that doesn't work in Chase just keeps the game flow going, I think is the difference. On Survivor, it's playing the game for you. On Killer, a lot of times, like Barbecue and Chili, is just telling you, it's giving you the idea of where to go next. Not throughout the entire match, just right then and there. Because most of the aura reading on Killer isn't that bad. There were some egregious examples, and still are. Black Incense on Plague is a good example. As much as I love it, Old Cigar Box on Clan was a good example. Killer's only stressful because Nia and Ace got a start. Why is it always Nia and Ace? But no, that's pretty much my stance on it. This came from us talking about skill expression, but like that's the thing with Dead by Daylight. It's such a weird game to talk about skill expression with.